There'll be two parts to this presentation. And in the first, I will introduce a few design principles that you can apply to your slides. And in the second part, I will show you 9 tools that may help you in presenting your content that's more relevant to your specific subject matter. So let's begin with the design principles. Not everyone has trained in graphic design, so slide layouts can be daunting. In this section, I'll work through a few design principles that will assist you in creating a visually cohesive presentation. Design principles are used by architects, graphic designers, interior decorators, etc. They are used to help produce aesthetically pleasing and functionally designed outputs. Let's focus on 4 basic design principles that are relevant to presentation design. And the first is going to be visual hierarchy. What is meant by this? Visual hierarchy refers to the order of importance of the items on your slide. It guides your user's eye across the slide to the most important elements on the slide. Think of what do you want people to view first and what do you want them to view next. In this example, your eye is firstly drawn to the bigger sentence. You will read this first, and then the next sentence, the one below, and finally the smaller sentence at the top of the block. So I'll ask you here, how is this achieved? The first thing that can create prominence on your page of a slide to make items look bigger or smaller is by playing with size. So play around with large or small elements on your page. Here we have a headline where the first sentence is bigger than the rest. So it gives it more prominence by making it bigger than the copy that follows. Notice how the information on the right, under the red down thumbs, all seems to blend into one long sentence. However, on the left, under the green tick up thumb, you are able to quickly give meaning to what's happening on the page. Another easy way of creating visual hierarchy on your page is to play with the weight of your fonts. So this is the example where we played with the size of your headline. And then the one on the right, some of the text is bold, giving it more visual prominence. Perhaps you've noticed how this has been used in the design of the slides in this presentation. Next time you visit your favorite news or gossip website, have a look at the size of the fonts used, as well as the weight, how this has affected the way that you've selected articles to read or skim read in a newspaper. It's something that's used in websites, it's used in slide design, everywhere that you see text weight and font weight is used to create prominence. Color is also used to help create visual hierarchy to make items jump out at you. I worked for an advertising agency in my past life, and I had a colleague who used to tell the graphic designers to make it pop. She was American. And that was essentially her saying, create some visual hierarchy. Think of your audience, what items on your page need to pop and what doesn't need to pop. Here you can see how color has created that pop effect, and the information on the darker background attracts the eye more. So if you look at the one on the right, more than they do on the right, where everything on the page feels like it's weighted the same. My colleague Roisin Garvey recorded her session on preparing digital teaching and learning content for a diverse learner group this week. And one thing to note is using light text on a dark background. If you do, make sure that the contrast between the two colors is high and the weight of the font is not too thin, as people may struggle to read this. I recommend a less is more approach to light text on a dark background. So use it to emphasize points, but also consider other ways to highlight information. So possibly look at making the text bigger and increasing the weight by making it bolder. Don't just rely on using color, and don't use it too much. Don't put all your text on a dark background. Use it when you want to emphasize something. Students may also want to print your slides on a black and white printer. So if you've highlighted a point in red text for emphasis, this will print out black. However, if these two slides were printed in black and white, the one on the left would still highlight the percentage block containing 77 more on the darker background than the one on the right. So look at creating high contrasts if you're using color to emphasize points, if you are considering having things printed out in black and white. Where you place your items on your slide gives them more prominence, so the position of the items on the page. When you design your slides, try to play around with prominent and not so prominent positioning of items on each slide. So what's more important? What's less important? Larger slide headings at the top of a slide give your heading more prominence. As you can see in the example on the right, the slide heading to the bottom right of the page has less pop or prominence. Something else to try is using all caps as a tool to give headings and certain items more prominence. So all caps is all your letters in capital letters versus sentence case, which is upper and lowercase. So try this. See how the uppercase is being used on the color background. As you can see, we have combined size, weight, color, position, and all caps in the layout on the left under the green tick to guide the audience to the more prominent items on the slide. One thing to consider, though, is where you will be using all caps. Screen readers tend to read all caps as an acronym, and it can at times read out each letter instead of the whole word. And some readers struggle to read all caps, so I suggest using this sparingly. So if it's maybe at a conference and you are presenting live, maybe it'll work, but if it's something where the students are referring to the notes, PowerPoint presentation notes, and having a screen reader to read it out, maybe consider not using all caps. When a word is written in sentence case, it has a unique shape as well, which helps readers to recognize a word more quickly. When a word is written in all caps, the shape is all rectangular, and this can slow down reading. So it's something that graphic designers use if they are creating an advert or something like that, but possibly not something that should be used all over your lecture notes. And if you're texting, also not all caps, because people think that you're shouting. The next design principle we're going through is white space. What is meant by white space? This refers to the blank space around elements on a slide. So blank space can be a white background, or it can be text on a dark background or images on a dark background. It doesn't necessarily have to be white. It's just the space that you find around the relevant objects or text. This supports the idea that less is better. In this slide, you will notice that there's a lot of white space on the page versus the page in a newspaper. As a graphic designer, when it comes to print material, white space can be a luxury, as every page printed comes at a cost. You may have noticed some luxury magazines are designed with very little items on a page and a lot of white space. However, when it comes to PowerPoint, you are not considering how much it costs to print something. You can create as many slides as you like, and you don't have to cram all of your information into one page like a newspaper, where they want to keep costs down. Here's an example to see how more white space can create a calmer layout. Information does not blend into one busy page of text. The page on the right only presents 3 steps in the process. Another slide can be created for the following 3. So as you can see on the left, there's 6 different points. It looks like a newspaper article. You don't know, what's going on there. It's just very busy. So split out the content over 3 pages and apply things like, color that's going to draw your eye to each of the points. Chunking content in this way makes it easier for your audience to firstly follow what you're saying, but also to focus on the right information at the right time and not jump ahead to the following print. I know I'm guilty of this. If someone gives me a slide with all that information on, I'll often just read through all of the slides and not actually listen to the presentation. So if I'm only given the option of 3 points, I'll only look at the 3 points versus being given 6 points, I'll have a look at all 6 points. White space doesn't, as I mentioned, white space does not necessarily have to be white. It can be on a dark background with less text or images on it. Again, make sure the contrast between the white text on the dark background is high to ensure that it's easy to read by the readers. Use white space to separate sections, create space to avoid crowded and busy slides. A clutter-free, minimalistic look to slides ensures a great user experience and great reading performance. Think of your slides as a wardrobe. An organized wardrobe with less well-folded clothes makes it easy to find your favorite jumper. Clothes that are not folded and just thrown into your wardrobe create a chaotic environment, and it takes longer to find what you need. Think of your audience. When a slide is too cluttered, it's a very busy wardrobe, they won't be able to focus on the important information. So make it easier for them by splitting your content up and onto more slides and with more white space around your text and objects. And then they'll be able to focus on the information and not focus on trying to sift out information. Our next design principle is repetition and consistency. This refers to using similar or identical elements throughout a design. This is used to achieve consistency and help breed familiarity between your viewers and your presentation. How can this be achieved? My suggestion is to stick to 3 or less fonts in your presentation. There are lots of lovely fonts out there, but like spices, they don't all go together and don't all blend to create a harmonious dish. You may have noticed that I have used the same font throughout this presentation. This has allowed you to focus better on the content and not on the font itself. Try to keep your layout consistent. Keep all your headings the same size and font. This can help create a calm and predictable experience for your audience between each slide. You may have noticed that there is a color theme that runs through this presentation. In your slides, try and stick to the same set of colors or color theme in your presentation. Companies and universities mostly have a set of brand guidelines, so this can make things easier for you when designing your slides, where the color is already picked for you. There are also options in PowerPoint where there are, a couple of different types of colors that are used together to create themes within the presentation if you would like to use another theme. Let's say, for example, you're going to a conference and you just, presenting by yourself, you not presenting for the university. However, if you're going to the university, a good idea would be to use the MTU branded slides. And look at the style of your images. Try to keep your design elements and graphic style of your elements similar. I do understand that this is not always possible when sourcing teaching material. Creating bespoke illustrations, if they do not exist, can help you create a similar graphic style for your teaching material, or sourcing stock images from a source where you can choose the illustration style can also be handy. My colleague Dara Coakley's session this week on finding and remixing images and videos to use in teaching and learning is uploaded to the YouTube and Tell YouTube channel. Please feel free to watch it if you would like some guidance on sourcing images and videos. These are meant to be 3 slides from one presentation. And as you can see, the fonts all differ, the layouts differ, colors are not used consistently, and the graphic style differs. These 3 slides all feel like they come from the same presentation. The fonts are the same, the colors are from the same theme, the layouts feel similar, and the graphic style matches. Your audience will spend less time processing the jump between styles and focus on the content instead. As a takeaway, remember to bring all your elements together in your presentation by implementing repetition and consistency. This can be done through the use of 3 or less fonts. I feel like I've said this before. I have, yes, because this is the takeaway. A color theme for your presentation and a similar approach to graphical design elements. And hopefully you've noticed how this has been achieved in this presentation. Alignment can be used. This is the 4th design principle, and we're going to work through alignment. This is where you place your elements on your slides. It helps to organize the various elements on your page to create visual connections, which boost comprehension and improves the readability of your slides. These items are all placed randomly on the page, and the eye jumps from one point to the other. In the example on the right, under the green thumbs up, the items look more organized and easy to follow and to read. This is achieved by aligning the items on the slide vertically and horizontally. I'm going to go out of a presentation mode and just quickly show you how to do this in PowerPoint. So if you've got various items on your page, select all of the items, click on Shape Format in the ribbon at the top, and on the block Arrange, click the little arrow and click on Align. And you can align the items left, center, right, align them to the top of the page, align them to the middle of the page, and just fiddle around with that. So if you're working with text, it's always a good idea to align them to the left so that they all have a nice clean line down the vertical of the page. So remember to ensure that similar items are aligned either horizontally or vertically, or even both, and are evenly distributed. This gives your slide a sense of unity and makes it easier for your viewer to scan the slide and to grasp key concepts. I'm just going to have a quick sip of water. So that's the end of the part one. I hope that all of you feel fired up to go and create some incredibly designed slides. The next section I'm going to focus on is 9 top tools that you can use to present your content that might be better suited to your subject matter. I'll run through a quick demo on these, and please keep in mind that this is being recorded. So if I'm going through them too quickly, you can always revisit this on our YouTube channel. So the first tool that I'm going to go through is the morph tool. And this is an example. This can come in handy when you have a process that is visually illustrated. As you can see in the slide of tire production flow chart, there are many steps in the process. If you were to show this to an audience, firstly, it would not be clear as some elements may be too small, or they will be tempted to jump ahead to the next step before you have explained the last. The morph tool allows you to move through the steps in what seems to be quite a slick animated way. So it zooms you through the process. You can speak about each of the steps in depth before moving on to the next step in the process. You can decide to time them, or you can click through them as you'd like to speak through them. So now I'm going to demo to you how this is done. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is have your picture saved of the infographic. So go to Insert, Pictures, and you're either going to select your picture from your browser, from a file, or from stock images. So insert your image. Once you've done that, you go to Transitions, which is here in the top ribbon, and you select the Morph tool. So transitions are generally how the slides change from one slide to the next. Select Morph. You can decide the duration of how long it takes between the different stages of the process, and then select on mouse click, so that when you click on the mouse, it's going to change to the next thing. You can even add things like sound, and that it changes after a certain period of time. But in this instance, I'm just going to say for 2 seconds on mouse click. Here's the trick now. Once you have that slide, you click on it and you right click it and you duplicate the slide. But what I'm going to do is use keyboard shortcuts. I'm working on a map, so I go Command C, Command V. You go to your duplicated slide, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the size of my slide. What you need to do is hold down your Shift button and go to one of the corners of the slide. Holding down Shift ensures that your image on your slide doesn't distort. And you expand the size of the image on your slide like that. Now, if you want to be really fancy, what you can do is hide the portion of the slide that you don't want. So you go to Insert, Shapes, and you select the shape that you want. I'm just going to draw a rectangle. Cover the part of the slide that you don't want to see. These are things that animators do all the time, and we think that they're very clever, but actually they just know how to work in different programs. Create no outline, and that's your first slide. So then for how do you get it to move to the next part? You take the slide again. I'm using shortcuts, so I'm using Command C, Command V on an Apple. You go to your next slide, and then you move your slide to where you want the students to look at next. And you do that again for each of the slides. I've done a few of them ahead. And then once, if you want to see how it works, go back to presentation mode. And you can see how we give the fact that it's now been hidden away, the section that we don't want to show, and we're animating through the various components of the slide. And once you've presented all the content of the slides, then you can show them the entire process altogether, or you can start with showing them the entire process, then go into showing the steps in more depth. So the next tool is working with 3D models in presentations. This is handy when you are presenting at a conference or presenting a concept to a class or a client and don't have access to the design software you used, or you just want to work in a very small file, and you want to get some feedback from students on their 3D object. You want them to be able to critique each other. They want to be able to present to a class what they've done. So let's first of all see how it works. So as you can see, there's a basic 3D animation of a heart on the right. You can then have a look at it from one angle. You can move it around to another angle. Let's say you were teaching someone about heart valves. You could then put in your notes on the side, pointing at the various valves. This is the aorta, this is that. It's a very long time since I've done biology. Here is a vein, here's a nerve. And then the students can discuss and have a look at all of these items. So let's have a look at how this tool, how you can use it. And I mean, that looks pretty impressive for someone who doesn't do animation. So what you can do is you go to Insert, and then in the ribbon at the top, you'll see 3D models. And either you can save your own file as an OBJ file if you work with 3D models, or you can search stock 3D models. Now, I don't know how fast the internet connection is here, but as you can see, there's a range of different 3D models that you can insert. These are just basic stock ones. I've already put one in just in case it takes too long to insert. Okay, there we go. That was actually quite quick. So you can insert your 3D model wherever you want to have it. You click on the circle on the center, and you can rotate the item because it's a pre-rendered 3D object. Same goes with this one. So how do you get your object to move the way that I did earlier? Well, again, it's just a combination of two tools that are readily available in PowerPoint. So I'm going to copy and paste the slide. This is the view that I'd like to see in the first time. Let's close that, get out the way. The next slide, I'd like to have the object turned a bit. I'd like to have this object bigger. I'd like the students to view the object from a different angle. We're going to talk about the bottom of his shoes. One thing that I forgot to mention is that once you have your slide, if you want to morph it, you need to go back to transitions, morph, select it, look at how long you'd like it to take to transition to the next slide, and then highlight on mouse click. Again, you can add sound. And the reason why we're duplicating the slide is because it's taking the transition with it. So let's copy and paste this again, and we can move the slide around again. And let's just have a look at how it looks once we've applied that. And so there again, you can see how things move around. So if your student was, for example, designing a medical device and you wanted to critique it or present it, that's an easy way of doing it. You can also insert your own 3D models, as I mentioned earlier. And that would be an OBJ file. Apologies for that. An OBJ file. Sometimes it can take quite a while for the file to be placed into the presentation, but it's worth a while in the long run. The next tip is icons. As I mentioned before, not everyone is a graphic designer, and they don't necessarily have the ability to create an illustration like the one on the right. Sometimes it's very hard to find stock images of what you want. You don't know if you can use them because of Creative Commons licenses and everything, but PowerPoint has a whole host of images that you can use, and you don't have to worry about, user rights and all of that. So you go into Insert, and you go into Icons, this little duck in the ribbon at the top here, and it'll pop up with stock images. You can search what you want, and it gives you various options of icons. So let's choose that one. click the icons. You can add more than one icon at a time. And you can insert them. Once the icon's in there, it acts as a shape. So you can increase the size of it. Remember that when you're increasing the size of something, hold down Shift and take one of these little corners to expand it. If you don't hold down Shift and it's going to distort the shape. You can then change the color of the icon as well. So you can do graphics fill, you can change the color and pretty much make it the same color as that you're using in your presentation or whatever suits you. Let's close that. Something else that I wasn't aware of until about last year sometime is that there are cartoon people in PowerPoint that you can really use. And I'm just conscious of time. We're nearly to half an hour, but I'll keep going. So you go into Insert. Let's do a demo on that. And where these are handy are if you need people in your presentation and you don't want to use photographs and you need to have some type of, scenario-based learning about people or wherever you would use images of people, and you don't want to have to worry about, getting permission to use people's faces or whatever it is, or having to go out and take photographs. So go into Insert, go into Pictures, which is in the top ribbon here. It looks like a little mountain scene. Click on the arrow and go into Stock Images. Then the stock image pops up here, but sometimes you have difficulty finding it because you actually have to click on the arrow on the right hand side, this drop-down menu, and there you can choose your cartoon people. Now there are various characters, so you can get a suite of characters. You can get faces, you can get heads, you can get upper bodies. Go through this and have a look. Where it is nice is that when you have characters, there's various types of characters, and you can get a set of the same person. And you can insert them. And again, you can change the color and that. But what I do like about it is that you've got things like heads. You can insert a head and change the person's facial expression. So this is really nice if you may be dealing with emotions, talking about emotions, or if you're talking about, customer service and, what would you do if a customer came to you and they were angry about something or whatever it is. As you might have seen, there's also the option for cutout people there. So it's under the same tab. So let's go and have a look where to find them. So we go to Insert again. We go to Picture, the drop down, Stock Images. And then again, it's not just there. You have to click on the drop down menu and you go to Cutout People. Again, this is really nice for scenario-based learning. There are sets of people. So for example, if you were talking about one person, in this instance, it's Melissa, and there's various poses that Melissa's in, and you'd like to add her in different poses because she's feeling, maybe you're talking about sadness or happiness or whatever it is. And then you can insert her, and you know that you can really use this. This is also really nice and handy if you're talking about something like a user persona and you want to quickly get a picture of different types of users for, let's say, for example, if you're designing a website or you're an instructional designer and you want to get some pictures of people for a user persona, and they all styled the same way and they all are readily available with lots of different poses. Something else that you can do in PowerPoint, and Rasheen touched on this in her presentation, you can check your accessibility. So in the top ribbon, you click on Review, and you can check accessibility. So click on Check Accessibility, and as you can see, there's a whole lot of errors in my presentation. And this means that you can go back and check the accessibility issues. For example, I've got missing slide titles, I've got missing audio or video subtitles. And so it means that you can just create a better presentation for students who maybe need just a little bit more help in terms of, their screen readers need to be able to read images for them and all of that. Another thing that is handy, oftentimes you'll find that you'll have a presentation and you want to upload it to Canvas and it's quite a big presentation. You don't want it to take up too much space for when students are downloading the presentation, or you need to send an email. Let's say, for example, if you're emailing something from MTU, you've got a 25 megabyte limit, or some companies, if the file's too big, it bounces back. So you want to be able to compress your images, which in effect makes your presentation a lot smaller. I just want to show you that when you do compress your images, it doesn't necessarily affect the quality of the image. So here you have the initial image, which is whatever size it is that you download or you've taken on your camera or created. This is an image that is 220 ppi, which is pixels per inch, 150. You'll see that the quality is still fairly similar to the 220 one. And then when you get down to 96 ppi in an illustration like this, it just seems to work. It's okay. However, if you're looking at a more technical drawing like this one with the production flow chart, be careful not to go too small when you compress the image, because what can happen is your image becomes blurred. And hopefully you can see the difference between these two images, how the text is now become blurred and unclear. And let me show you how to do this. So just hold on a second. This is not in the ribbon at the top. Click on the image and click on where it says PowerPoint top left in your main menu bar of your computer. You should be able to see this when I click on it. Click on File, and then there's a little tab, Compress Pictures. So click on that, and it'll give you the picture quality, compress pictures to reduce the file size of this file. You can do all of the pictures. You can do selected pictures only. I'm going to do selected pictures only because I don't want my technical drawings to become too blurry. It can be the high fidelity maximum, so 3 to 330 ppi. You can create it for print. So if you know that your presentations are being printed, make sure that they are about 220. On screen is 100 ppi, 150 ppi, and then email 96. So what I suggest you do is create your presentation, create a copy of your presentation so that you have a version where everything is very high ppi, and then create another version that needs to be emailed that's 96 ppi if you need to send it out. And if you're doing an on-screen presentation and you just don't want to have a very big file, 150 ppi is recommended. So when you do that, you'll see that the quality of the image has not gone down too much. The last slide shows shortcuts. So oftentimes you're doing a presentation, you just want to quickly make the screen white so that the students aren't distracted. You know, maybe you're in a classroom and you want to talk about something, but you don't want them having a look at the screen. You press W and your screen goes white. And then to return your screen back to the presentation, you press W again. The same goes for if you want to make a black screen, it's B, and then press B again and it disappears, it comes back. Sometimes, you know, having a mouse doesn't look that great. So if you want a laser pointer, I'm not sure what the shortcuts are in on a PC. I've got a Windows PC, I've got a Mac here. So Command L, you'll see that it makes, let me go back here. It gives you your mouse as a laser. Get rid of it, Command L again. And then another handy tool is a pen tool. Let's say, for example, your students were working with those 3D renderings and you want to draw a picture on it and comment on it and point at things and all of that. Then you can draw with your pen tool. To get rid of the pen tool again, you Command P again. What it's going to ask you, if you would like to save your annotations, you can decide if you want to save your annotations to review later. Or if you want to, I didn't know this, but when you draw on the screen like that, it's called annotating. So you might learn something there. You can save them or you can just get rid of them so that next time you do the presentation, you no longer have them. And then last but not least, I'm going to go to my favorite little tool. And it's the Record Cameo. You can add a little cameo video to your presentation. Let's go out here again. So as you can see, it's asking me if I want to keep my annotations from the last slide, and I'm going to discard them because I don't want them. So for the cameo video, you go to the record button. this is nice if you want to, you want to connect with your students, you want your students to see your friendly, happy face. There's a lot of instances where people would like to have their face on a recording. Let's say, for example, you have a conference and you can't go to the conference and you pre-record and you don't have access to ScreenPal or something like that. There is always the option to record in PowerPoint. And in this instance, you might want your face attached to the slides that you're presenting. So click on in the top ribbon here on the left, insert cameo. And you can decide where you want to place the cameo video. You can also decide the shape, the camera shapes. So you can decide if you want to be a little ray of sunshine, and you can decide on the effects that are around it. So that is that.